Just how big of an issue is crypto crime? Well, welcome to the Daily Forkast, April 19th, 2022. I'm Angie Lau, editor-in-chief of Forkast, covering all things blockchain. Well, the U.S. has pointed the finger right at North Korea for March's massive hack of the Ronin network. But while a loss of over $600 million sounds pretty big, one expert says we actually need to put such headline-grabbing figures into perspective, as well as considering what's being done to combat such crimes. We're going to take a look at that, plus a whole lot more coming up. Let's get you up to speed from Asia to the world.
Join thousands of NFT traders who already start their day on CryptoSlam.
Well, let's kick off with a development for the crypto space in Thailand and safe haven, perhaps, for Binance. Binance, the world's largest crypto exchange by trading volume, has moved one step closer to forming a joint venture with Bangkok-based Gulf Energy Development to set up a crypto exchange in the country. Now, in its regulatory filing, Gulf Energy said once the joint venture is established, it will apply for a digital asset exchange license with relevant agencies. The joint venture plan between the two firms was initially announced in January. While Thailand has banned cryptocurrency payments, financial authorities in February did backtrack on plans for a 15% tax on crypto assets following a public outcry. Given that Binance has faced regulatory scrutiny from global regulators, including a criminal complaint from the Thai securities regulator last year, of course, this is a story we're going to be keeping a close watch on. Meanwhile, it is one of the biggest hacks in crypto history, and now the U.S. has pointed the finger right at North Korea for the $620 million Ronin hack. The Federal Bureau of Investigation in the U.S., or FBI, has alleged that the hack was perpetrated by North Korea's Lazarus Group and APT38. And the U.S. Treasury has added new sanctions against the Lazarus Group's Ethereum wallet as well. Now, back in March, hackers stole over 170,000 Ethereum and 25.5 million USDC in a breach of the Ronin network, which the blockchain-based play-to-earn game Axie Infinity runs on. According to its latest update, Ronin is still in the process of updating security measures in the wake of the hack and expects to redeploy the Ronin bridge by the end of the month. Earlier this year, Reuters cited a confidential United Nations report which alleges that North Korea has been funding its nuclear and ballistic missiles programs with funds from cyber attacks. And according to blockchain data platform Chainalysis, the country's cyber criminals stole nearly $400 million worth of crypto in at least 7 attacks last year. You can find those stories and more at Forkast.News. But keeping on that theme, let's take a deeper dive into crypto crime. Now, exploits like the Ronin hack are obviously a huge concern for the blockchain community. But speaking to Forkast, Carolyn Malcolm of Chainalysis says it's vital to dispel myths about the volume of transactions related to illicit activities. Forkast's Carolyn Wright reports.
Crypto crime was high on the agenda at last week's Paris Blockchain Week summit, with one session discussing how to leverage blockchain technology to prevent crime. Speaking to Forkast after taking part in that session, Caroline Malcolm of Chainalysis highlighted one key aspect that she feels is vitally important for people to realise when they hear about losses from hacks.
Crime gets so much attention, but it's really less than 1% of transactions that occur on the blockchain, and we really have to try and keep that in perspective. It's important to tackle it, but it's also important to recognise how much value the ecosystem brings.
Not only that, Malcolm also pointed out how easy it is to trace the perpetrators of such crimes.
I think what's really special about the blockchain is that we do have a permanent, immutable record of all transactions, which means that when you do have something like a hack, even if we don't have all the information today, over time we're able to gather that information and combine it with that permanent record of what's actually taken place and allow us to actually get behind and find out not just where the money's gone, but ultimately the people behind the hack.
Malcolm says that governments have already stepped up their game by implementing anti-money laundering and know your customer measures, which help identify transactions, but more can be done.
I think the next stage of now that we have that regulation in place across most countries is actually enforcement, so making sure that people are meeting the obligations they have.
Malcolm says that while there is a perception that crypto is being co-opted by bad actors, it's also worth remembering that one of the first mainstream uses of Bitcoin was for fundraising, and that continues today.
That happened in 2011 with WikiLeaks when they turned to Bitcoin as a source of donations, and it's happening today in 2022 in terms of the Ukrainian government seeking donations to support the efforts against the Russian invasion.
For Forkast, I'm Carolyn Wright.
Well, a combination of supply chain bottlenecks and the war in Ukraine led to an 8.5% inflation print in US in March. That was the highest in 4 decades. In the UK, inflation is at its highest level in 30 years. While over in Turkey, well, they're grappling with a 70% jump in food prices year on year. This as the crypto market is also struggling to find momentum. So how do ordinary folks deal with all the market moves? Well, let's find out with Million Ronin, CEO of Matrix Asset Management. Great to have you with us, Damien.
Great to be here, Angie.
You know, it's really hard to imagine for just everybody around the globe. Consumer goods are spiraling out of control in many places. And the question is, Damien, can cryptocurrencies be the refuge people are looking for? And not just as a means of investment, but a way to retain value of their assets. And we're hearing reports coming out of Turkey that people are actually switching to crypto as the lira is in a free fall. What are your thoughts?
I think it really depends on the situation for each person. I think in economies where their local currency are taking a beating, just like Venezuela and Turkey, I definitely think switching to crypto would definitely be much less volatile than their own local currency itself. For the people in the developed economies overall, we would have to wait for the Fed to start hiking, assets to really come off its lofty highs, not only just crypto, but equities and bonds as well. Once that carnage is over, what we'll see is that people will start picking through the remains and cherry picking gold and crypto specifically. So I think you'll have to be patient, but yeah, the buying opportunity will be there, but you'll just not have to do it all right from the get-go.
Yeah, but I mean, just about every asset is in choppy waters right now, whether it's equities or bonds, where we saw yields inverting. And the Bitcoin correlation with NASDAQ 100 is at a record. And this really impacts the ability to use Bitcoin for diversification, does it not?
I think Bitcoin valuation is really 2 parts. One is it overall that it's an option on digital gold or options on the unit of account in the future, and it's also a store of value. So those two keep interplaying and fighting all the time. So right now, given that everybody's front and center looking at the Fed overall, it's acting a lot more like just the other assets, and that's just like the first part of the story that I was talking about earlier. It will be correlated to NASDAQ, but once the Fed has stopped hiking or is at the tail end of its hikes, then we'll start seeing the other part of the valuation play out, i.e. the option on digital gold itself. And that's the point where I think it will start to outperform all the other assets overall.
And BitMEX co-founder Arthur Hayes recently said BTC could slump to 30,000 by June. How would you approach the different coins, Bitcoin as well as altcoins like ETH or Avalanche and stable coins as well? If we see a significant correction, would that be a buying opportunity?
Yes, I think so, and I think the rising tide will lift all boats. So for people who are looking to fight inflation overall, obviously Bitcoin is the granddaddy of the industry and of the space itself. So definitely buy some of your assets and a portion of your portfolio there. For the others, I would like categorize them based on their functionality. Ethereum, for example, FTM, Avalanche are all layer 1 coins, and I think that the network and the use cases in them will start to grow. And especially with ETH 2.0 coming up, I think Ethereum will outperform all the other layer 1 coins overall. But you can't go wrong by just investing some of your money in the space overall. Just add a little bit to your portfolio, and it will really make your portfolio outperform overall relative to a traditional portfolio of only bonds and equities itself. For all the other coins, there are thousands and thousands, so it's really hard to go delve into the details of all of it. But definitely look at the use cases, do your own research, and have a look. And I think there are definitely some gems out there out of the multitude of coins.
Well, if people were looking to find that opportunity and get into the market, it may be coming soon. Damien Lowe, always a pleasure. Thanks for that.
Thank you, Angie.
And that's the Daily Forecast. And if you want a deeper dive on these stories, by the way, the Daily Forecast is now also a newsletter and can be delivered straight to your inbox. Sign up at Forkast.News/newsletter. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'm Forkast Editor-in-Chief Angie Lau. Until the next time.